Greetings shippers, and welcome back to my new favorite series on this channel, Fanversations. The series where I get to chat with fellow YouTubers, other content creators, and of course, you guys, general fans of everything fandom. Today, we have a treat. Fandom nostalgia. Get ready to see that I am fully prepared to sit on a porch in front of a lawn, because that's how most of this discussion sounded. Remember? I am 100% loving talking to all of you guys. So please, if you're interested in getting in one of these fun Fanversations, consider donating to the Patreon, as people over there do get first dibs. Or please don't be afraid to hit me up. Twitter, email, I don't bite, I swear. We have so many topics left to cover. I'm kind of looking for some DCEU buddies just to talk about it. Pros, cons, everything. If that interests you, please hit me up in some capacity. Now sit back, throw this on in the background, get something to drink, just chillax, maybe paint your nails, and let's talk about fandom nostalgia. Hi, how are you?
Good, how are you?
Good. It's a gloomy day here, but it's always good to talk about fandom, so I'm excited for that.
Yeah, I've got my scarf on because it's cold.
It's really cold up here too. As they say, winter is coming, and I'm never going to stop making that joke, and I don't care.
I know. I'm used when I was little, it was always full of snow right now, so this is not snow is weird.
Yeah, we get less snow up here too. It's like further north there's snow, but right here, nothing yet. We're still waiting.
I don't even know what the world is anymore because I don't expect that we'll probably get any snow until like January at this point.
Yeah, half the time now we're just waiting to see if we'll get snow for Christmas, and it doesn't always happen anymore.
I feel like that's such a shame for kids now. At least if you're on the East Coast, I feel like you should always have winter. You shouldn't lose winter.
Yeah, because you're used to it. Like for places that never get it, it's fine. But when you're used to having it, it's just kind of like, oh, but it's not complete.
Yeah, I had friends from Texas and St. Croix who went to college with me, and they marveled at the snow until they realized it wasn't going away. And then they were like, what is this frozen hellhole and why am I here? And I was like, well, you picked it. I don't understand. And then I had a friend who drove from Florida and like left her car over Christmas break.
Oh.
And when she came back, it was the one of the few snowstorms we had gotten. And she was like, does anyone want to help me get my car out? And I was like, sure, do you need an extra snow brush? And she's like, what's a snow brush? And I was like, I'm gonna come help you.
Oh, speaking of, greetings shippers, it's Sasha from Shipper's Guide here with
Amy. Yay.
I'm terrible at introductions. I always forget. For the first half, like, people are like, did you not say your name on purpose? But no, I just forgot.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I don't even know how to introduce myself, I guess. A patron, fan, subscriber, everything?
All of the things.
All of the things.
So you wanted to talk about the kind of evolution of being part of fandom, right?
Yeah, just if I like take myself from 11, 12 years ago, and like if I tried to stick her in fandom now, that would be ridiculous.
It would be very, very different.
Yeah, can you even picture your younger self like having Tumblr and all that other stuff?
Younger me was not ready for Tumblr. I guess
Definitely not.
To paint the picture for those who are in it now and don't remember back in the day, when it was first emerging, fan sites, fiction, all of the discussions, they weren't really consolidated like they are now. They were spread out amongst a variety of different things.
Oh my God. And everything had such different terms.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, terminology has also shifted, and all the places were kind of hosted on these individual, oftentimes independently run fan sites. That,
oh my God, GeoCities,
Angel Fire.
Oh, Angel Fire too. Oh my gosh.
Oh, I remember the horrifying days where you would go and they would just be gone. The site.
Oh yeah, when like they forgot to pay or whatever for their bandwidth, that was, and then everything was just gone.
And somebody else bought the domain and it was just dead. The fics were gone.
Everything was gone, and you had no idea how to recover any of it. Like I have printed fanfic from when I was like 12.
Oh, so do I, because after a while it was too much of a risk to not print things, and I was like, okay, I'm having a hard copy of this because I never know if I'll see it again.
Like I feel bad how many like I would just copy and paste, or I would just like take screenshots and just like save them into my hard drive because I was like, if this disappears, I will be so sad for the rest of my life.
I'm so glad that I did that because there are a couple that I've never found again. Like some people reposted them because as things moved on, there became bigger archives, the live journals, the fanfiction.net, the Tumblr, eventually Archive of Our Own. And some people reposted, but some people either had moved on from the fandom or just, weren't interested. And so some of the fics I never found again.
Oh, I know. I feel like sometimes I wonder if I just dreamed them. It's like, did this actually exist or did I just imagine that it existed? Because, like, thank God people have gone back and saved the Melon Chronicles because I would have died if I wasn't able to find those again, like 5 years later.
I know exactly what you mean. It wasn't a fic, but it was actually a kids thing that I saw when I was younger, and everybody I talked to about it has never heard of it. So I will ask, in case maybe you have heard of it. Have you heard of Rainbow War?
Rainbow War.
Yeah.
I can't say that I have, but I am with you in that my uncle owned a video rental store when I was younger, and so most of the things I watched as a kid were obscure VHSs.
That's another thing that people aren't going to have anymore, the VHS rental store. Oh, that was a good time.
Oh man, but like the Get Along Gang, Mapletown, like if I can find anyone else who's ever been a fan of Mapletown or the Get Along Gang, that would be like my dream.
Are there any fandoms that you were in that did not survive the transition from like the old school all over the place to now when everything's all kind of easy to find?
I guess I've lost a couple of fandoms that I just stopped being interested in, but I think everything's kind of lasted. I'm kind of lame and I tend to follow a lot of like big fanon OTPs, so those never get lost to time.
No, definitely.
What about you?
It wasn't lost. It's just changed. I was really big into the Vampire Chronicles back in the day, and that was also, you got the extra taboo because she really wasn't supportive of fan fiction at that point, and she actually threatened legal action a lot. So sometimes you were like, is it gonna last? Are they gonna get sued? And that was, remember the era when everybody had a huge disclaimer on front of everything? They were just like, I don't own this, please don't sue me. And it was like half of the intro was just the disclaimer.
I had so many of those, and oh god, when fanfic.net went through and like killed all of the songfic, that got rid of so many things I wrote. Songfics were my thing for like 2 years, and I wrote a ton, and now they're all gone.
I know, I remember the songfic, and after the big purge, they never really came back into being popular again. It was just kind of, that was their moment, and it's over.
Yeah, but everyone used to be like, I don't own this. They're like, I have no claim over this. I guess like Team 4-Star does with the Dragon Ball Z abridged.
Yeah.
Like that just used to be the intro to every fic before like anything else was. I don't own any of this. Don't take it away, please.
I still see that, but it's a lot smaller than like now. I guess people aren't as worried because it's so much more mainstream. I find it's still very much a subculture, and a lot of people don't know about it. But I find for people in the know, it's definitely not as much of a taboo to be into fan fiction and stuff as it used to be.
Yeah, well, like now they're even talking to stars about it. Every time I see someone asking like, hey, how do you feel about being on the internet and being shipped with this person? And I'm like, oh god. Like, as if they have any idea. Well, except for some people like Tom Felton.
Yeah.
But
some people do, Oscar Isaac.
Some people are in the know. I'm just going to flat out assume most of them aren't, and that's totally fine with me because I feel like I don't know, I just feel like they're so far removed from the fan space that I don't know why anyone needs to bring them into it.
I feel that sometimes, because it's overwhelming, I imagine, the amount of fan content that must be sent their way. It would be impossible for them to look at all of it. So I can imagine that for some of them, it just ends up in the pile of things that maybe they have assistants or other people look through, because otherwise it would just be too much input, I think, from other people.
Yeah, what author was like, everyone needs to stop sending me fanfic because I have too much? And I was like, oh, I've never sent an author anything I've written about their work, but I would feel the most awkward doing that.
I've never been brave enough to do that. I really admire people who can. I'm too afraid. I'm so afraid they would actually read it and I would get a message back that's just, I hate this. It's the worst thing. They would like go by point of why it's terrible.
Yeah, same. Like, oh my God, my first fic was a self-insert Mary Sue. That has never seen the light of day since then. Like, and it never will. It's never going to.
I didn't do any writing that saw the light of day because I was too self-critical of it. But I did do fan vids back in the day, and that channel still exists, and they are still up there in all of their glory.
Yeah, when I didn't even I didn't even touch fan art or fan vids or anything. Mostly I stuck to fanfics for a while. I think it was just I just didn't really want to like I had the picture in my head and I really didn't want to see it on paper because it also felt awkward for me because I also never got into real person fic like ever.
Mhm.
So just fan vids and fan art to me were just too close to it. But I mean, I've mellowed now. We're not gonna. We have. I have a secret folder on my computer, and no one else can find it. So
It's mine's not secret. It's just it would just be a question of why do they have this? Like why is this here?
and then those manips you used to do in like MS Paint.
Oh my gosh, yeah, before Photoshop and before people knew how to use it readily and all of that jazz.
Oh my God. Yeah, and like before GIFs, where you just had like a 5 pages of still images.
Oh, remember when everybody, oh my, I didn't realize how nostalgic I was for this time until right now. Remember all when there were the icon contests for the little display pictures that people would have
Oh
on
my
live
God, yes. Oh my God. I remember those.
And then the
Oh,
first time they added motion, it blew everybody's mind, and everybody had a moving one, and it was really annoying.
yeah. Like that was like when MySpace you could add as many songs as you wanted, and then it was like, well, this page is never loading for me again. I feel like it's kind of weird to be nostalgic about it because I remember at the time feeling it like it was some sort of secret thing. Like it was kind of taboo because everyone thought it was weird. It's like, why do you care about these characters outside of what you're what they've already been in? And I was like, no, you don't understand.
Yeah, having to
Like this person is
explain
the best.
why you were still invested, that was always interesting. It's always very hard to explain. I still can't fully explain it adequately. Like, why are you still reading this? It's like, well, it's not over.
For me, I got into the first fandom I looked for fanfics in was Lord of the Rings
Mm.
back when it came out, the first movie. And it was just because I watched the movie and then I read all the books. And then I was like, I still feel like there's so many gaps that I just need this filled in.
Hmm.
And that's what I started looking for. And then I encountered, I don't even remember, it was a website and everything was, organized by rating. And I was like, well, I'm not going to read anything R rated because I'm 12 and I don't do that. I was like, but what is NC 17? And then I was like, oh, well, welcome to being an idiot.
Might as well go to R now.
Like, well, I can't close that door again. What was your first fandom?
My first fandom was the Dragon Ball Z fandom. I was into Vegeta and Goku, or Kakarot, because I was hardcore like that, and Vegeta and Bulma, and then from there I really got into the Vampire Chronicles stuff because they were just so beautifully written, and I wanted more of it, and it made me so sad when I realized how much she hated it. And I think that was part of my development of the idea of, okay, this is separate and not part of the creator sphere. And from that point, what creators thought never really bothered me so much because I was like, well, as long as people aren't, they're not selling her work, they're not profiting from it. I
Yeah.
don't see why it matters if they have different ideas in their heads of where the characters should go.
Yeah, like even from the first time I saw Lord of the Rings, I was like, well, I don't agree with any of these pairings. So I don't think, oh God, I have like maybe two like canon OTPs, and everything else is just nope. So that was part of my thing, and like, oh God, I was into Star Wars
Mhm.
for a long the fandom. But that one was fun because there were so many like expanded universe things that it almost felt like you didn't need fan fiction for a while because there were just all these books and like the Jedi Quest and the Jedi Academy because I was obsessed with Obi-Wan Kenobi, young Obi-Wan Kenobi. Although
Yes.
now old Obi-Wan Kenobi, I can see it. But when you're 12, you just want Ewan McGregor. But that was good. I think the first anime for me was Fruits Basket. That was the first one where I had shipping because like Dragon Ball Z, I loved Dragon Ball Z. But I started watching it while he was on his way to King Kai's, like on the road.
Oh yeah.
So for the first like 20 episodes, there was no fighting. And I was like, why does everyone think that this show is so violent? And then by the time the fighting started, I was like, hooked, whatever. But you smish that between Sailor Moon and Gundam Wing, and it's like,
Oh, Gundam Wing.
oh, Gundam Wing.
So how do you feel being in fandom now, where everything is so instant and easy to find? You watch a movie, you can go home that night and check Archive of Our Own, and someone's probably already written a fic for it, and you can just jump right into it.
I mean, it's really awesome because I feel like I can find people who think like I do, whereas before it's like it's kind of isolating, where you're just like, I can't find, like, I want to find people writing about this character from this show, and it's like just trying to go down a rabbit hole and you find like one thing, and it's it's ridiculous, but it's been fun because I've actually gotten to watch the Stranger Things archive of Our Own, like, and the Dream Daddy stuff explode. Like, that's been the coolest, I think, is watching a fandom grow.
What I like to do now is I like to predict what the ship is going to be. So I'll be like at a movie or a show and I'll be like, them. And then I go on and see if I'm right. And when I am, I'm always like, yes. Like Loki and Valkyrie, or Lokery, whatever we're calling it right now, called that from even before. And now it's starting to happen. I was like, yes.
Yeah, that's what I used to with my ex all the time. Like, as soon as I would see like certain characters, I'd be like, that's going to be the biggest / ship from this fandom. And of course it's not / anymore, but back when it was.
Back when it was / yeah.
Back when that's what you called it. Like, I would just be like that, and he'd be like, how do you know? And I'm like, just look at them.
That's actually how my channel blew up, because after I went to see Star Wars back like a couple years ago, and I was like, it's Poe and Finn. It's Poe and Finn.
Yes.
And I came home and I was like, I need to make this video. And then it blew up at around the same time. And I was like, yes, because it's them. The jacket and the lip bite.
I'm blaming you right now for the like hole that I have dug myself several feet deep into Stucky, because I did not have a Marvel Cinematic Universe ship. And then I watched your Stucky video, and then I watched your OT3 video, and I was like, damn it. No, like, I've gone down the rabbit hole. I don't even know if I get to escape anymore.
I was doomed because I was shipping Stoney from before because I'm big into comics. And so when Civil War happened in the comics and they went from being best friends to not, I was all up in the fix it universe. If we have to fix it, they're best friends, we need to fix it. So even though on screen that never manifested, and it never felt like they were friends in the cinematic universe, except maybe once or twice, and even then not really good friends, I was still shipping it because I had all that comic backstory to be like, so it was just all missing scenes in my head, like, no, but they talked and had a good time off camera, just nobody saw it.
No, yeah, I mean, like, now I would say I don't have a problem with any ships, but back in the day, oh god, ship wars. Ship wars.
What was the biggest ship war you were involved in?
Oh man, I think I got too involved in Drary. I think it was mostly because I was so anti Ron and Hermione. What is that name? I don't even know what that name is.
Some people call it Ron Hermione.
I don't understand where we decided to start combining names from. Like the first thing for me was Bennifer, and we all laughed at Bennifer because that died, and then Bennifer 2.0, which also died.
Yes. I like the combinations, but I also like when people try based on character traits, like they do in like Once Upon a Time, like Sleeping Warrior. You know,
Oh yeah,
hooked
I love
queen.
that.
I like that a lot. Because sometimes people try and go back and apply it to older ships that didn't have it. Because, for example, Kirk and Spock is now Spurk, but it used to just be K/S because it didn't have
Yes.
a ship name. So whenever I hear Spurk, I always think about a spork.
Yeah, like every time I'm like Stucky. That's like first of all, Bucky is stupid. Like that's the stupidest. Like fine, I like the puns, but Stucky, like, but I mean, I used to just be all over A/L. That was my thing in Lord of the Rings. That's how you did it. And like Scorbus, I'm like that's AS/S. Like that's ass. Like I used to just call it ass because it was hilarious. Like you can't call it Scorbus. But
Scorbus sounds like an actual name of another character to me. Like Scorbus entry stage left, but no, it's just their ship name.
sounds like a plant or something, like a mushroom. And here we find the Scorbus potterus.
Those are fun discussions that happen now that didn't used to, where people argue about what the ship name should be. I see whole threads of like, what are we naming our pairing?
Oh my god.
Although I am so happy when I was talking about Nightwing and Deathstroke that people decided on Dickstroke. So that is now my favorite thing.
That's amazing. Oh my god. Yeah, I think my favorite one currently is Stark Spangled Banner. I love that. That's a great name.
That is a really good name.
But yeah, naming of ships is still so weird to me.
I never really got into any shipping wars back in the day. I think the closest I got was in the Buffy fandom of the Angel Buffy versus Spike Buffy. Because I didn't like the first season of Buffy, and that's where all of the Angel stuff pretty much happens. So it was, well, Spike.
Yeah, no, that was, I mean, it wasn't like I was a lurker. I've always been a lurker.
Mm-hmm.
So I've never, like, got super involved in anything, but it was always like, what are those people thinking? Like, those characters could never, ever be together. I don't know. So, do you ever look at ship manifestos?
Yes.
I love ship manifestos. Those were, like, my jam for a very long time.
Ship manifestos are actually part of what inspired me to do my channel, because whenever I couldn't understand a ship, I would actually just type in whatever it was and then ship manifesto to try and figure out or they were also a great place for looking up like comics or movie recs or episodes where they were the most common or interacted and stuff, which was fantastic. Yeah. I think the biggest ship manifesto when I first really got into them, I was looking up Spidey Pool. Because for me, I was like, what is happening? Why? And so is Spidey Pool ship manifesto to the rescue?
Yeah, a few of them that I read changed my mind. Mm-hmm. I would say that.
Same.
But definitely, I went like scouring them for some of my ships where I was like, does anyone agree with me? Does anyone believe in this? Is it just me? I've only found like 5 fics and like 3 websites. Does anyone else believe me?
That's kind of the sadder thing today about everything being collected, if you think about it. Because before, when everything was all scattered, you could always at least pretend that maybe you just didn't find the website. And there was a whole quarter of people who shipped it, but you just weren't finding them. But now it's just there that nobody else is shipping it.
Yeah. It's like maybe there's a forum and I just haven't figured out what the word they're using is. That was so sad. I remember I participated in a fic exchange for Harry Potter like years ago,
mm-hmm.
and the request was for Ron Luna, and I was like, this is a thing? And then I wound up liking it. I was excited. I think the last time I looked, it was one of like not too many, but that was like years ago. But it felt nice to sort of just be like, here's an entry.
Yeah.
Here's an entry to someone else's pairing that I don't dislike, but it definitely, I feel like you need to explore pairings that even if you don't agree with, like, you just need to sort of get in that mindset to really come to an understanding. Because at some point, like, everybody has to figure out each other, because these fan wars, like, I don't know if I just was too outside of them to notice them in the beginning, but I feel like they're so much worse now. When, like, everybody has access to this stuff.
I think it's a combination of like maybe they are a little worse, but also because everybody can get in touch with everybody. And with all the social media and the consolidated locations, it's so much easier to see when people are fighting. Whereas before, like you had to be on the Angel and Spike Buffy forum to find people fighting. Whereas now I see that people are organizing coordinated attacks sometimes. I saw that actually, I was talking to somebody else and they said that there was going to be a Steeder Day for Teen Wolf, and that other ships were organizing to go and be like, okay, we're going to go and we're going to protest this because it's the worst ship ever.
Oh
And
my gosh.
it's just like, no, calm down. Everybody ships different things and it's okay.
Yeah, it's like relax. It has nothing to do with you. Just let people like what they like.
Do you think that part of it has to do with sometimes shippers are young?
I mean, I definitely feel like there is that like teenage age where for most people who find themselves shipping, like that's kind of that volatile age. But at the
Mhm.
same time, I don't want to generalize anyone.
I don't
Like for
either,
like
because I've met some pretty intense adults in the fandom as well.
yeah, I feel like adults who are as fanatical are more scary than teenagers who are fanatical. So I don't think it's the age. I think it is just the connectiveness. Because like before, you had to actively seek out where the fans were gathered, and now it's like you just type in a thing on Tumblr and there it is, and you
Hmm.
can immediately comment. Like you can't request an invitation to be a member of this forum or this place.
It's also a lot easier to gather in the real world as well.
Yeah.
It's so much easier to have meetups, and so because of that, I find that people are much more free with it. They're freer with their cosplay and just getting together and letting the world know how much they like it, which I love. I think it's absolutely fantastic. But it also makes it easier for people who want to go and be angry about that kind of thing to find them as well.
Yeah, no, it's definitely like seeing how many fans there are has been amazing. Because I just went to like Rhode Island Comic Con.
Hmm.
It was bananas. Most people I think I've seen in one place in a long time. But it was so much fun to just wander past all of these fans who were just, you know, wearing fan art on their shirts. And it's
Yeah.
like even I feel like 5 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to walk around and see people like fan art and like, cosplayers who really like cosplayed their pairings and,
Hmm.
gender swap cosplay. I love gender swap cosplay or like different time period cosplays.
Yeah,
So
I know those are
cool.
awesome. And it's definitely becoming a bigger thing because now from the start of like cons and stuff, now you have so many more people who are fan artists with their own booths and cosplayers with their own booths, and people are going to meet them as well as meeting the official people, and that's just fascinating. It's really cool.
Yeah, definitely. My friend, I've been with her at a couple anime conventions where she's been selling her art, and it's like the amount of people that she draws is incredible.
Hmm.
Just like I love wandering around the artist alley and just seeing all that talent because when you used to have to go search it out, it was so difficult.
Hmm. Oh, back in the day when everybody had a huge watermark.
And you were a jerk if you like tried to take it off just to have it for yourself because you didn't want to look at the watermark, but you
Yeah.
couldn't take it off because that would be like I'm not trying to steal your work, bro.
I
I
just want
don't
it to be
want
my wallpaper on my computer.
yeah, I don't need that giant uh that was and also just the quality that I feel like quality has improved so much with all the, Photoshop and everything.
Oh,
Like,
especially in the fanvid community, because now the editing software that you can get is so much cheaper, so much more accessible, and you can do so much with it. So you can see some really amazing fan edits. Whereas
I
before,
know,
like
like
some of mine I look back on and it's just woo.
yeah, like I just watched a couple and it's like they have all these effects and like you can cut out people and I'm like I don't understand how to do any of that, but it's beautiful.
Oh, the Disney crossover fandom is amazing for that. People cutting out the characters and placing them in other films, and there is some
Like,
really amazing things happening there.
yeah, like I feel as though I don't know if it's the community's also just gotten bigger or if it just seems that way because of the interconnectedness, but just everything, like there's all these things that I never thought about before that now fans are introducing. Like, the coffee shop AU is just a thing now. It's a thing that you have, and like, you know, when Black Hermione first came out, I was like whoa, but now I'm like, okay, yeah, totally, I get behind that, and like
Hmm.
Desi Harry, like, okay, I totally support that. I would never have even considered that that could be a
Hmm.
thing. So just finding like so many people are just I feel like there's just more. I feel like the internet and people in general are just a lot more open to these sorts of things.
Definitely. I think the internet has completely revolutionized fandom because everything can be shared so much easier and people can jump on something like somebody has a headcanon and instead of it just being like them and maybe the few people who say read their zine or went to their website, it can now be everybody because it's so easy to just be like, oh, hey, I like that. Share to all of your followers and stuff. And then before you know it, it goes from just being your headcanon to actually being fanon,
Oh, I
which
know. That's it's so great. I feel like Fanon has just exploded.
How do you feel about though when people sometimes want the fanon to be canon?
That one's hard because like, as a not heterosexual person, I would love Fanons to become more canon just because obviously more representation is always great, but at the same time, every the world is actually more constrained than fanon ever allows it to be.
Mm-hmm.
Like movie studios, especially nowadays where like the China market is so important, like not gonna happen. You're not gonna get a non-heterosexual canon pairing. It's just not gonna happen.
I think people don't
And
realize the fear that these studios have because the landscape of how people consume media has changed so much and their profit structure has changed so much that they really don't want to take any risks. And I think that's why we're seeing so many just blockbuster, 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 adaptation, adaptation, because it's they want things that can guarantee a
yeah, like a
return.
guaranteed success, and especially like with the worldwide market being what it is now, like
Mm-hmm.
you have to cater to so many different rules and regulations, like even just in Great Britain, like the rating system's different.
Yeah.
So that changes completely how everything's supposed to be. So I think although it would be amazing
Mm-hmm.
to see stuff go from fanon to canon, I think that yeah, the people that we're yelling at to change it aren't the people that are going to be able to do it.
That's the thing, and that's why I feel bad whenever I see that because people are like, "You should, push for this. You should have been more overt with, say, Korosami or something like that." And it's like, but they can't be. They literally, they
Yeah.
really can't be.
Like they were more open about it than like they probably were wanted to be by everyone who was looking down and breathing down their necks.
The thing is that I do see change happening, but it happens slowly. I think it just happens slower than anybody would like. And then it must be acknowledged too that when you have a show, say like Steven Universe or something, when it does go overseas, it does get heavily censored. A lot of it ends up being cut, and then you have to end up paying for those alterations and stuff. So when you do stuff like that, it does come with a cost that I don't think a lot of people end up following through because they're like, yeah, just do whatever. Like you said, there's more than one market. So
Yeah, and it's like, and I think when you get inside the fandom bubble, you forget. It's like, I don't understand. Everyone knows how popular this is. And it's like, no, actually,
hmm.
in the great scheme of things, you account for like less than 2% of
Yeah,
like the amount of people who know this. So it's kind of I think you have to remind yourself that you are in a very constructed space.
it's a subculture, and I really do think I think that's a great point you brought up. I think people really forget that. I have a friend who's not a fangirl, and it's wonderful because she grounds me and helps me remember what the world is like outside, and that there's just a bunch of people who are like, "What are you talking about? I've never heard of any of this," and don't understand the concept of it or the appeal.
Yeah, it's definitely like I always have to remind myself every time I come out of, you know, my little bubble. I'm like, okay, back in the real world, people don't think this way. Like, this isn't just because you've seen like 8 million posts that agree with you on like one forum doesn't mean
Yeah.
that that speaks for even half of the amount of people who are actual fans.
No, it's true. It's like when people use like Twitter polls as stats. It's like, no, I'm sorry. It's just a Twitter poll.
Like, you can make all the petitions you want, but like in
Yeah.
the grand scheme of things, unless you got money to put behind it,
Hmm.
I
It's
don't really see anything.
it's like, remember the trending hashtags from a little while back? Hashtag give Elsa a girlfriend, hashtag give Captain
Yes.
America a boyfriend, and everybody was so disappointed when Bucky wasn't instantly his husband.
It's like, really? Because that wouldn't alienate like a huge amount of the market that you don't want to think it would happen, but does happen.
It sadly it would happen, and also not just because of people being homophobic, but because of people who love canon.
Yeah.
I find that people in fandom can, especially in the fan fiction side of it, can sometimes forget how attached people are to canon,
Yeah.
because there are people who do not want anything to change at all. I'm in the Star Trek fandom, and people who are way too attached to canon is definitely a huge problem.
Oh yeah, no, I definitely like I still prefer like even myself I still prefer fanfic and like fan stuff that follows canon as closely as possible, especially if it's an adaptation. Like you have the canon of the source material too.
Hmm.
And so that changes everything on like another level.
And it's difficult because you're trying to cater to so many, especially like, for example, comic book adaptations. Like, you're trying to cater to the comic fans, you're trying to cater to people who have never seen it before or heard of it, and then to add this extra demographic of this subculture that wants all of their fans to come in, like, that would be a lot.
That's why I feel it's a good thing that Disney just kind of was like, hey, all of that like expanded universe Star Wars stuff gone, not canon anymore. Like, because it used to be canon. It's like now it's
Hmm.
not canon because we want to establish like everything going forward and we're changing everything. And that's great for them because it gives them so much more freedom in what they're going to do. But at the same time, it was so hard for stuff that you were just like,
That you really
you're
wanted to see, yeah.
but no, this they've been together for decades. Like, it's like it's like Leia and Han's twins have existed for a lot longer than you've had
Then
this
this new,
property, and
yeah, this new.
they're gone. They're just you've killed them. You've killed them. They're now fanon.
I think that's kind of better than, for example, what the Star Trek official canon did with this new Discovery series, where it's just operating in this weird nebulous zone of, is it canon? Is it an alternate timeline? Is it an alternate universe? We don't know. And it's just
Oh,
kind of floating in there. So you have all these arguments because Star Trek fans are insane. We invented a whole backstory for why Klingons look different in the original series to the modern series that wasn't just there's better makeup. So
yeah, I haven't I've like barely dipped my toes into Star Trek and I already was like, okay, well this is just gonna be because I'm a nuts and bolts person.
mhm.
So as soon as I get into something, I need to know everything.
It's a lot.
It's
It's
like,
a
well,
lot.
I'd have to like hide myself in a bunker for a couple of years to get to the nuts and bolts of Star Trek.
Yeah, it is a
Or
lot.
Doctor Who. Like,
Oh, Doctor Who, I went back to the nuts and bolts of that a couple of years ago, and that was intense, especially when you learn how many of the episodes simply don't exist or had to be reconstructed because they re-recorded over
right?
the old tapes, and
Like,
then they were
oh,
just sad.
I wouldn't be able to handle it. Like, I devour everything. Like I need all the behind the scenes. I need all
Hmm.
of whatever I can get my hands on. I get my hands on because I feel like it helps inform me more about everything, but then it's also, when you're reading or like watching or um, looking at something and you're like, well, that's not true because I read this in this one weapons field guide
Yeah.
for the Dragonlance. It's like, don't you know that it's made out of tempered steel? It's like, No, they don't, because no one's as obsessive as you. Get over it.
That's the thing. Like, I love the additional stuff, but I'll always forgive if in a fic or something it's not there. If it's not in the main thing and it's you have to read a tie-in novel or it was in the behind the scenes footage of a DVD and they don't know it, I'm like, eh. Like, not everybody's gonna go and get that or has access to it. So don't be a jerk because not everybody knows that Captain Hook loves Jello or is afraid of it and then loves it.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, it's like you may have watched Lord of the Rings with every single commentary possible, including the sound editors. But not everyone cares that much. And let me tell you, the sound editor commentary for Star Wars is amazing. Just so you know. But, like, who wants, like,
I can believe it.
realistically.
Sound editors are patient people. They have to do some really intricate work.
Oh my God, the things that they do is just crazy. But at the same time, it's like I can't fault people for not knowing as
Of
much as I do,
course.
because, like, the whole fake geek thing. Ugh, I remember when I was younger and I was so fierce about defending myself, and now it's like there's no fake. There's no fake. There's never been fake. Like, if someone just watches the movies and only likes the movies, they're not a fake geek because they didn't read the comics too.
No, like the only fake geek is if someone who's pretending that they've seen it and they haven't, or pretending that they've read it and they haven't. Like, that's the only fake. Like, if you jump in, you're like, yeah, I sure loved insert whatever, and you haven't seen it, then that's fake. But
Yeah, but at the same time, if they're just doing it because they want to see it or because you're interested in it and you want to talk about it, like, that, there's still no harm.
yeah, there's no harm if you're like, hey, let me tell you all about Loki and why I love him, and they're like, okay.
Yeah, like, I've never played a single Legend of Zelda game, but I know enough about it because so many of my friends are huge fans that I can talk to you about, like, the basics, and it'll sound like I know what I'm talking about because I'll be like, ha ha ha, this, the milk, and it's like, but
No,
I
and for
wouldn't.
example, and you can still have an opinion about it. Like, maybe not about specific aspects of gameplay, but definitely about, like, storylines or just how you feel the mythology is or the universe, or maybe even the gameplay if you've seen other people play it and have watched them really struggle at a certain point or something. So, yeah, I feel
It's
like
like,
people are harsh when they don't need to be.
I remember I tried so hard to be the cool girl and the girl who stuck out and not the fake geek, and now I'm just like, that was a huge waste of time. Because the people who cared, I don't even talk to. Like, 5 years later, where are they? I have no idea. I have no idea. The people who didn't care are still around.
Speaking of, like, people trying to incorporate fan-ins and that kind of stuff into canon, have you ever seen that done well in a way that wasn't either pandering-y or kind of baiting-y, which happens a lot?
Um, I kind of have to jump back, I think, to Korasami,
Hmm.
because I was really happy about that. And I remember being, like, as soon as I saw it, like, I think after the first season of Korra, and I
Hmm.
was like, Korasami, okay, I can get behind that. I like that. That works better than what I'm seeing right now. And then to see that be sort of come full circle
Hmm.
in canon was really nice, because I feel like most of the time creators don't know enough about the fandom to really take what the fans are saying in the correct context. So, not that there's anything wrong. They're kind of busy, actually getting paid to make things. But, like, you start up a Twitter hashtag and you're like, put these two characters together, and they're like, okay, gung ho, and then it's like, no, you did everything wrong. You ruined it.
It was like the Clans backlash when they tried to do that blackmail stint, and I was like, well, it's already plotted. They've said that they already have everything, like, laid out how they want it to go. What are you changing? They're going to go back to the basics and or scrap everything because you blackmailed one animation studio? It's not going to work. It's not going to happen.
You can only affect them so much, but, like, well, for instance, like with Free, that was awesome. Like, hey, we're just gonna show a little animation thing to show how good we are with water. It's like, yes, please, I'll take that anime
Yeah.
and its sequel. And they pulled out all the stops and actually worked at making something that I liked watching. But for every one of those, you just get so much backlash
Hmm.
from everyone, because you're never gonna, like, even if you put 10 people who want the same thing in canon together in a room, they're not going to agree at all between each other how to put it in.
No, no, they're really not. And also there are all the other people who are shipping all of the other things. So basically, like, no matter what part of the fan you pick, you're kind of going to step on somebody. So it's a hard game when you try and please the fans. I've seen different shows do it, and there are some where I think they've done a good job, and there are some where I don't, but other people do, and others where I can totally understand why people think it's pandering. Even with Korosami, I can understand why some would view it as pandering. Like,
Yeah.
I can see how you would miss the cues and just be like, what is happening? So I do get that, and it's because also with that, it's because the history of those creators had with the Zutara stuff from before, which was definitely not handled as well as Korosami. Remember Book 4 Air, where they had that whole showing of like the Book 4, and it was going to be Zutara, and that was a whole fiasco.
That was such a disaster.
Yeah,
that whole thing was. Oh my god. And I wasn't even a Zutara shipper, so that was just worse. Like, there's nothing worse than feeling like, oh, hey, they're pandering to fans, but not my fans. But yeah, I mean, I feel like sometimes I almost just want to tell creators to just forget it, just don't even, because it's not worth it. You're gonna cause more headache and heartache for everyone.
Especially yourself.
Yeah,
especially yourself, because there are so few who can do it well. But the ones who do it well, they're excellent at it. I think the only thing that bothers me more than poor execution of fan expectations within the canon is I don't like when at cons, this was a thing for a while, I don't know if you remember it, where they would get fan fiction and read it like out loud.
Oh yeah, that was I hated that. I hated that. That was so awful.
And there were a couple of shows I saw where they would show the actors like really explicit fan art of themselves like banging another character or something, and they would get really uncomfortable, and then it would kind of be like, ha ha, look at this explicit fan art. And I was just like, come on, it's not cool. Don't do that.
Yeah, it's like, first of all, like, the person who made that didn't, and like, even if they're writing fan fiction or drawing fan art or making fan vids and putting it on the internet, they're not, unless you send it to the person it's of, it's not intended for anyone but yourself and other people who like it, you know, and then just to take it.
And it's just, there's such a power differential in that situation, I feel, because you're just some fan on the internet. They're an actual person who's involved in the project, and so to have them making fun of it or bringing it up in that space, I feel is really unfair unless you've given permission.
Yeah, and I've always disliked when actors will kind of like, oh, well, let's tease it because the fans want it. It's like, don't like say something at a convention or like joke around on set and be like, ho ho, this could be a thing that happens this season. It's like, no, it's not. Just don't. It's not where it's, first of all, you're not, you don't believe it. And second of all, you're just feeding you're feeding a wolf and you don't know when it's going to bite you.
I don't mind it. I think it's fun if it seems like they're genuinely having fun with it. Say a modern supernatural, not past, because they used to be kind of butthurt about it, but modern supernatural where they're just like, yeah, and they've really come to embrace that side of the fandom and have a greater understanding of it than I've seen other shows do. So I find that more fun because I feel like they've acknowledged that it's not happening. It's just, they just find it fun and they want to get in on that fun.
I don't know. I guess I just feel like you shouldn't, they're going to be, to me, there's too much of a chance that people will still read into it wrong. That if it was me, I would say just don't even try. Because at this point, there's, like, every time an actor says anything, like, it's all over the internet.
Oh yeah.
No matter, like you know, like Mark Ruffalo leaves his live on and accidentally spoils part of a movie, and it's everywhere. Everyone's like, Mark Ruffalo might get fired. It's like, you know, it's so, you know, it's like, oh, he said he would want to make out with this guy on the show. It's like, maybe that was a joke. Mm-hmm. Maybe he was serious. Who knows? But the internet is too scary of a place.
I think seen it's like a game of broken telephone. Because
Yeah.
I've done a lot of Clant stuff, and I'll see things that I know aren't true, or even in the Harry Potter community, where I see quotes and stuff attributed to J.K. Rowling that she never said. And I know she never said them, but they're there as facts. Remember when J.K. Rowling endorsed this pairing, and she said it was going to happen, and it didn't? I was like, that never happened.
Yeah. It's like it's such a double-edged sword because there's so much more ability to interact with fans for these
Hmm.
people, but at the same time, there's so much out there that can be misconstrued or photoshopped or misattributed, and then it can start such nasty things.
Yeah, like in a way, it's never been easier, but it's also never been harder.
Yeah, it's like okay, well you got closer to us, but you also went from walking on a road to walking on a tightrope, so pick your poison.
Yeah.
And definitely like now with all the adaptations, have you started to feel like now that they're really like pulling out more from movies and sequels that you're starting to get kind of a deja vu in terms of like I've read that in a fanfic
Yes.
before. Like that happens to me so much now like, than it used to.
That is actually why I didn't like Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Because I have read so many he finds his father fics that were 10 times better
I
than
know,
that movie
right?
was.
Yeah, like it's so crazy to me to think that because it makes me like, wow, they were even better than I thought they were at figuring out where stuff was going.
Sometimes I wonder if it's lost syndrome, where the creative staff are actually looking. Because I remember that was
Yeah.
a thing with Lost, where they're like, what are they saying on the forums? Let's do that. So
Yeah, I definitely remember where there was a lot of talk of, well, are they reading what we're writing? Because they just threw that in there, and that doesn't seem at all where that was going to go.
hmm.
And I mean, for some things, like for Twilight, I hate
Hmm.
Twilight, hate it, but I fell in love with a pairing, and I threw myself into fanfic, and I was
Hmm.
like, well, this is the only place where my Twilight fandom can exist because A, everyone writes a bajillion times better than she ever could. And B, this is where my pairing is exists. But I think that's also something I don't know if people are gonna because they have so much access to everything now. I feel like people aren't gonna, and because of all the sequels and cinematic universes, you're not gonna enjoy like crossovers and what ifs as much because they're becoming more common.
I think it might also just be a case of burnout. Because even though we've always had a lot of adaptations, it feels like right now it's very much an exclusive adaptation landscape because those are the things that tend to get wide release. Whereas anything different usually gets a smaller release or is instantly released on a DVD or digital Netflix and you don't really hear about it again. So it kind of feels like you're just operating in this landscape that it's almost exclusively the Marvel Universe.
I mean, I think the blockbuster scene has definitely like it used to just be summer blockbusters and now it's like
It's all year.
blockbusters all year except for the dead zone in January
Yes.
which is still crazy but I also feel like nowadays people are a lot more open about when things are an adaptation because things have been based on like books
Yes,
for
forever.
years,
Hmm.
that's been since the inception of film. But I feel like nowadays it's a lot more common for you to see like based on the best-selling novel by blah blah blah.
Now they'll try to horizontally market it, whereas back in the
Yeah.
day, it almost felt like it was shameful and it would be at the very end, adapted from, and you'd have to really look.
Yeah.
Now, even if
It-
the book has a different title, they'll change the title to the movie title, like with Limitless, where the book was called Dark Fields, I think, and they were like, now it's called Limitless because that's what the movie's called.
yeah, and like reprinting the book with the movie poster,
Mm-hmm.
that's such a big thing because I remember it used to be, oh, this was based on a book, and now it's like, oh yeah, it's based on a book, and like especially if the book isn't even out yet.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, okay, pre-order the book and pre-order the movie tickets. Like, because I'm one of those purists where I have to read it before I see it. This
I'm
kind of a
like that
thing.
too. Yeah, I'm like that
So
too.
it's like as soon as I find out, I'm like, well, to the book I go. And now it seems like more than ever where they're just making TV shows and miniseries and movies based on books that haven't even come out yet, but there's already a huge buzz around them. It's like
Makes you wonder if these books are being written for adaptation sometimes, for the more cynical minded out there.
it definitely, I feel like young adult future dystopia definitely became way more oversaturated.
Oh yes, after the success of a couple of those adaptations, then yeah.
Yeah, which is a shame because it was a really thriving place before all these adaptations became movies, but now it's kind of like if you went back and took any of like those older books and tried to put them out as a movie now, they would be, like reductive.
Hmm. It was like that boom in the erotic thriller fiction after 50 Shades of Grey, which I do not classify as an erotic thriller. If you want erotic thrillers, there are much better erotic thrillers out there to read that are not that it's not adapted fan fiction. So
Ugh. Well, pick good fan fiction to
that's
adapt
the
from at least,
thing.
right? Like, don't if someone's gonna write fanfic about Twilight, pick someone who writes well. Like,
Yeah, because it's not well written. That's the thing. I can't get behind people who say it is because it's just not. It's just
it's not.
categorically untrue.
Like, it's not sexy. It's not well written sexy, and
Mm-mm.
it's just not well written. Like, I thought I had this quote from Twilight where I just was like, "That's the stupidest thing I've ever read in my life." And then, and then I saw quotes from 50 Shades, and I was like, "Well, never mind. I was wrong." There's a Tumblr post going around where something about his eyebrows widened, and someone like actually edited a GIF where just his eyebrows are bigger. And I was like, "Yes, exactly."
That's amazing.
It's one of the best. It makes me laugh every time it comes across my screen.
Did you read all of the Twilights though? Because I did. I read them
I
all.
I did them book on tape
Mm.
actually because I couldn't bear to have them printed. Well, the first one I got because I had to drive for 4 hours and I had like 3 hours of sleep. I was
Hmm.
like, well, what's going to keep me awake? And I said, Twilight audiobook. I spent the entire time listening to it yelling. Like, this makes no sense. What are you talking about? You're verbose. I don't understand. So it kept me awake and it did its job and I paid
Hmm.
attention. So, and then the worst part I think for me with her was that I didn't like Twilight, but I gave the host a chance.
Oh yeah, me too.
And then I was reading it and I was like, oh, you know what? I think this is a lot better. And then I got to the end and I said, there were no stakes. There was nothing, categorically nothing happened in that book. And I was so pissed.
That's the same with the fourth one. It's actually a book without a climax. It has no
Yeah,
climax. It just ends. It's all about this
nothing.
build up to a battle that never happens.
Yeah,
So
and I was so pissed at the end of that because everyone was like, oh, it's so great. She's jumping into sci-fi, and I was like, read Animorphs. Like,
exactly, because that's what it was. They were just yerks. That was
yeah, they were
all.
yerks, except they were nice
They
yerks.
were nice yerks who you got to see their viewpoints.
That was the worst. I was like, this is such a waste of my time.
I read the whole thing though. I couldn't put it down. I was like, why am I still? Well, I don't like to let things beat me. That's probably why I don't like to let books beat me. I don't like to let movies beat
Oh,
me.
me either. I didn't like A Wrinkle in Time. I read that entire series.
I actually really love that series. I'm glad they're adapting it again.
I think it was the writing style. I'm weird about writing style, but I hate read that entire series. It's like I don't want to be reading this, but I need to know what happens.
I hate watched Cloud Atlas. It's one of my favorite books of all time, and it's a terrible adaptation. It's so awful. And I was just sitting there like, I will not turn this off. You will not beat me.
Oh my God. You know, I was defeated once. I have been defeated. I was defeated by Howl's Moving Castle because that
Oh,
is one of
really?
my favorite books. It's still one of my favorite books.
Hmm.
And I was so excited. I was like, holy crap, Miyazaki's making one of my favorite books. This is going to be the best. And then I was like, all right, well, one of my favorite characters is Michael. And I was like, let's look it up. And it's like, Markle. And I
It
was like, no, no. And then my friend was like, okay, well, now I'm going to make you watch it. That's just,
it does feel the whole thing feels very rushed. I think what and all of the extra Billy Crystal talking that they added to the English dub that is just really painful. But I think what made me stick with it for the English dub was that Christian Bale was such a bizarre voice choice for me. That
And he did the bat voice.
It was so fascinating.
That one, I think my views got perfectly expressed in the Lost in Adaptation video for that. But I've only seen it once, and I will never see it again. I've read that book countless times, but that was the one time when I was actually defeated.
I've been defeated by Dave Chappelle's Block Party and The Good Neighbor. Because from the first 5 minutes, I knew exactly what was going to happen, and just the trek to getting to the end was just so awful that I was just skipped to the end. I just skipped to see if I was right, and I was like, I was right. Okay, turn it off.
I would advise against Deathbed, the Bed That Eats.
Oh, really?
Yes. Because it has a 3-minute scene that's the entirety of watching someone crawling away from the bed. Like it's 3 minutes, literally 3 minutes. Like picture 3 minutes of someone desperately crawling slowly across the floor to escape, and they finally get to the door and it's open, and you're like, okay, after 2.5 minutes I'm done with this, and then nope, snatched right back. It was totally a waste. Oh my god, I watch bad movies with my best friend, so I've seen quite a few.
I
of
love
those.
watching bad movies. It's just, it can be so cathartic. Sometimes you don't want to watch something good, which is a sentiment not everybody understands.
I think it's hard to explain sometimes the pleasure you can get out of them. Like Surf Nazis Must Die. It's like how do you explain to someone the joy you get from that?
I think the cardinal sin of anything is to be boring. Because even if something's bad, you can even jump into fandom and try and fix it, for example. But if something is boring, then there's just nothing attaching you to it. You don't care. I think being boring is worse than being bad.
Yeah. Or I think what's worse than being boring is being bad on purpose.
Sometimes that works, but lots of times it's far too winky. Like, wink, wink, we're trying to be bad at it.
Like, ha ha, we understand how bad this is. Like asylum films are such a hit or miss. You really have to hit the sweet spot.
Yeah.
But when they do, it's perfect, which is why the best bad movies are when someone is trying so hard.
Yeah.
They put in so much sincere effort.
Like The Room. Like that's genuine effort.
And he's at least sort of embraced what it became.
Yeah.
Now he markets it as a black comedy.
Yeah, at first he was fighting it, but since seeing how popular it is as a bad movie people love, he's really come around.
Yeah, but I have to say Fateful Findings has eclipsed The Room for me. Fateful Findings is made by a guy who is Tommy Wiseau if he thought that he was super brilliant and philosophical.
Oh my god, that sounds amazing.
It's beautiful. Like, he's made, I think, his name is Neil Breen, and he's made like 4 movies at this point that are all basically the same thing. He always plays some sort of like over-the-top amazing human being who is a hacker who's going to fix the world, and each of them is bad in their own way.
That sounds amazing. I'm going to have to look these up because I'm always looking for more fodder to enjoy.
Oh my god, Fateful Findings is just... it's glorious. Okay, I can explain a scene to you and it won't be a spoiler. Okay. So he's rescuing someone who has been tied up and they have, like, their mouth is covered too. Mm-hmm. So during his rescue of them, he takes off, like, the blindfold and the mouth cover and he's like, I'm here to rescue you. She's like, okay. And then he puts back on the blindfold and the mouth cover to save her. Like, he doesn't, leave her uncovered. He re-blindfolds her and covers her mouth again. and rescues her.
That's amazing. I think that's another fun thing about fandom now, too, is that you can find enjoyment in these things in a way outside of just, maybe your small network, of people who also enjoy bad movies or who can recommend other ones to you. And the recommendations can be so much better and more pointed and direct, I find. Like, I've gotten in contact with so many awesome people because of the way fandom is now that it's more than back in the day. Definitely.
Oh, totally. I feel like nowadays I kind of use fandom as a way to, I guess, test my friends. Like if you can recognize what I'm referencing, then we're totally going to be best friends. That's all. Which is so much more fun than, just sort of sidling up to someone and being like, so anime,
Yeah.
interesting. It's like, oh, okay, people like it now, so I'm allowed to talk about it without being just that weird girl who likes anime.
Yeah.
And I feel like I could keep talking forever.
No, so do I, but I actually have to go and rescue my daughter from outside. They're locked out.
Oh no. Well, go actually live your real life now.
Thank you so much for chatting. Do you have any info that you want me to insert into the description box and all of that good stuff?
No. Like I said, I'm a lurker, so I'm just gonna keep
You're
lurking.
gonna lurk? All right. Well, thank you so much. This was a lot of fun.
Thank you. I've had a lot of fun too. If you ever, feel like you want to bring back anything else to talk about from this, I'm always game.
Awesome. Sounds fun. All right. Enjoy the rest of your day.
You too.
Okay, bye-bye. So if you made it to the end, welcome and thank you so much for watching. You're a trooper, and I have to ask you, no matter how long you've been in fandom, what have you noticed change? And what change have you liked the most or the least? Let me know down in those comments below. This was, as always, a really fun time. Thanks so much to Amy, my guest, and I'll see you guys next time. This has been Shipper's Guide to the Galaxy. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, share, comment, and subscribe. Special thanks to all my patrons, names on the sides. Follow me on social media to stay up to date, and as always, stay tuned, for there are as many ships out there as there are stars in the sky.